So, with China now faced with these challenges, their economy is now under foreign control. They're facing internal problems in the bureaucracy. Their population continued to grow. Four major rebellions are going to break out in the 1850s and 1860s. But by far the largest of these rebellions was the Taiping Rebellion. The term Taiping means a great peace, and it was started by a Christian school teacher. And this Christian school teacher studied the Bible and actually came to believe that he was the younger son of Jesus, and begins to build up followers and gradually leads to this rebellion. And the Qing dynasty, they're going to send in forces to try to put down this growing power, and are actually defeated. And this is kind of the beginnings of this Taiping Rebellion. And the Taipings wanted radical social changes. They wanted an end of private property. They wanted an end of foot binding, and wanted to improve the equality of women. They wanted to ban slavery. They wanted a free public education system created as well. And they become very popular, especially in the southern and southeastern parts of China. They seize Nanjing in 1853, and this becomes kind of their new capital, and control a large portion of the south. But ultimately, a combination of Qing troops and foreign troops are going to come in and put down the rebellion. But upwards of 20 to 30 million people were killed during the Taiping Rebellion. And a lot of that was due to starvation. Many peasants starved to death. They were forced to eat grass and leather, and there's even stories of them eating other humans just to survive. So faced with these challenges, there were several attempts to change and improve. And one of the biggest was the self-strengthening movement. The idea behind the self-strengthening movement was to keep Chinese culture, but implement European technology. And so it did. It built some shipyards, it built some railroads, it built some weapon industries and some steel industries as well, made some changes to their education system. But ultimately, it wasn't enough to make a significant change, and religious and cultural conservatives are going to block a lot of the more needed reforms. And one of the biggest obstacles to reform was the famous Dowager Empress. The Dowager Empress Xuxi came to power and basically served behind the existing emperor, who was also her nephew. But she opposed a lot of the needed changes. For example, under the self-strengthening movement, money that was supposed to go to build up a new navy, she instead diverts that money and builds a huge marble boat on her lake at her summer palace. And she was constantly doing things like this to block needed reforms. Another example of failed reform, the 100 Days reforms. This was started by two Confucian scholars who advised that, hey, we need some radical changes in order to meet these growing threats. And the young emperor at the time, the nephew of the Dowager Empress Cixi, was actually supportive of these reforms. They wanted to industrialize. They wanted to increase freedom for China's lower classes. They wanted to improve the education system. But again, the Dowager Empress Cixi steps in, nullifies all the decrees of the emperor, and has the reformers killed and the emperor imprisoned. So the Boxer Rebellion was a rebellion against the growing foreign influences in China. And they were originally called the Society of the Righteous and Harmonious Fist, but they were nicknamed the Boxers. They were known for practicing martial arts and things like that. And so the Boxers wanted to rid China of what they called the foreign devils, all of these foreign influences. And local militias began to attack foreigners and Chinese Christians. And this was actually backed by the Dowager Empress and the Qing government. But European and Japanese troops are going to come in, they're going to put down the Boxer Rebellion, and then they're going to force China into even more of those humiliating, unequal treaties. And so the Qing dynasty continued for a short time after this. The Dowager Empress Cixi is going to die in 1908, and she leaves the throne to a 2-year-old boy named Puyi. And a few years later, rebellions break out. They overthrow the Qing dynasty, and the last Chinese emperor, Puyi, is forced to flee China.